You could accept the fact that this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
Well, what do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Get ready for 2 hours of hard-hitting football talk, straight from their jocks about the jocks. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
All right, welcome once again, everybody, to Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
Welcome back, Nodos. Welcome back for another edition of Football on the Know Show.
I like it. Yes,
A little bit different of the intro there.
Yeah,
so,
let's do it.
We'll change it up. Week to week, we'll try to change it up.
We're excited,
but
Joe.
Anyway,
definitely.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's get into this right now. I mean, you guys, I hope you're down for the NFC East biggest questions this week.
Right. Oh, yeah,
we're going
that's what we
division to division and asking the biggest questions of each team.
That's right. We've been doing the north of the AFC and the NFC. Now we're headed east side here where we are on the East Coast, and we're taking a look at the NFC East biggest questions. Let's get right into it, Joe. First, we are going to talk about the New York not the New York Football Giants. We're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. That's
Cowboys.
Where we're going to the alphabetical order. We're going to go to the Dallas Cowboys here.
Gotcha.
And first of all, my biggest question here for these guys is I'm wondering, why are they going to be on Hard Knocks again? I mean, this is going to be their third time. All right?
I know, right?
3 times. I mean, there's teams that haven't even been on there yet.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so multiple times here, and I understand, Jerry Jones, maybe he's got the deep pockets here and there, and I know there's certain criteria you have to hit too, and some that you're going to miss if you're a first-time coach or whatever you can't be on. But what drama are really going to show on this? I mean, is it really they want to try and follow Dak around? Like, how's your foot now? How's your foot now? How's your foot now?
How was it 5 minutes ago?
It's like, what's the deal here? What's so compelling about this team that says, yes, we bring him on a third time, especially when the previous times they had him in 2002, 2008, they missed the playoffs both those years here too, so it kind of looked fairly poorly, and that might have been the carbon print there for teams to say, we don't want this distraction in, on our field here on the preseason because this is what happens to. Maybe we weren't ready, and then now our team's, not going to perform well.
Well, I mean, you know what it is? It's the Jerry Jones effect, really. I mean, he's got deep pockets, but he's got a lot of pull in the NFL, within the NFL league circles and what have you. But the other thing, too, is like, Dallas as a fan, they have a huge fan base, like one of the biggest fan bases in the NFL. And
there's a lot of mental illness in this country. There is.
Yes, there is. There definitely is. But here's the other thing, too, that I'm a little confused about is for HBO. Now, from what I understand, the contract with the NFL and the NFL teams is that they would not go back to a team that they already have done Hard Knocks with. They were supposed to go through the whole league one by one. And, yes, there are teams still out there that frown upon them coming in and doing what they got to do to kind of show a little glimpse. But for the most part, and we've heard this from a lot of teams that have already gone through HBO's Hard Knocks, is that they actually, if you want them out of the way, but still able to catch some footage here and there and some audio and all that, they will oblige you. They will do the necessary things. Like, they want to make it interesting, but at the same time, they're not there to interrupt what you're trying to do in training camp. So I feel like HBO does a great job of that, not stepping on anybody's toes and staying out of the way. But, as far as Dallas having another shot again to be in the Hard Knocks, to me, there's no explanation, really. I mean, I feel like we got out of COVID, and obviously COVID year, they weren't allowed to be there and do Hard Knocks last season. So this year maybe they were trying to figure it out, and they were like, well, this whole thing with Dak Prescott coming back and his new contract, and he's got to prove some stuff. But other than that, there's really not like some hardcore like drama in Dallas. I mean, you could maybe they're not going to, but you could talk about Mike McCarthy and how he's handling the head coaching seat, and you got all these weapons on offense, and how you're going to utilize them this upcoming season, and then the defense. Did you improve it enough? But that's what all those questions are going to be answered in training camp, and then leading into week 1. So, really, what's the bottom line? There's not a whole lot of what ifs. You know what I mean? We all know what the starting receiving core is going to be. We all know who the quarterback's going to be, the running back, what the offensive line is going to look like week 1. And defensively, yeah, there's a lot of new faces. But in the end, a lot of them got to prove – they got to prove if they're worth it, if they're worth that starting job, if they're worth, being able to grab the reins and help out this defense and hopefully try to improve it. And you could also say something about the D coordinator. New D coordinator Dan Quinn is there. So let's see if he can make a difference. But that's really it. It's not a whole lot to go off of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, for me, it's a kind of a head scratcher here, without even busting on because I'm not a Cowboys fan here.
Yeah.
But I know, and Mike McCarthy, if it is potentially because he's on the hot seat or whatever it might be.
But why not do another team that hasn't even done it
Yeah,
yet?
because they had, the Giants were a finalist in this. Or I took a look at the finalists, and I think I think maybe even the Bengals were one of them, and a few others.
And they haven't been on Hard Knocks yet.
Right, and I don't think they really have. I don't think any of those teams have been on Hard Knocks. So, I mean, they would have been good
We need
unless
the
the
list.
teams
We
have
need a list of teams
I
that
did
have done
have
it.
it, too. Maybe I should look it up again quick.
Because that's
why
the
don't you
thing.
give us our next question here, and then I'll go back, and maybe we could circle back.
Yeah,
on it.
and speaking of the Cowboys, one of the questions that I have, a concern that I have, is the Cowboys offensive line a concern? Is it going to be a concern going into week 1 and everything? And when you look at their line right now, yes, granted, last season they had a lot of injuries. They were trying to kind of do their best and push forward and doing the best they can in terms of protection and in terms of run blocking. But all in all, now you look at this team now with all the guys returning in the draft picks they invested. You look at Tyrone Smith right now at left tackle. The guy has been barely on the football field. So that's one thing to me that's a little concerning, is a guy, his stature, very big, very gigantic human being, playing left tackle, was a Pro Bowl left tackle, but now due to the injury bug, he's been hardly seeing the field, hardly been able to help this franchise. So Tyrone Smith, can he stay healthy? That's another thing, is I think that left tackle position is going to be huge. If he goes down again, I'm sorry, but you got to throw in the towel at that point. Tyrone Smith is going to have to really think about retiring with all these injuries mounting up late in his career. Other than that, you got Connor Williams, who's a young offensive lineman for them at left guard, who they drafted in 2018, and he's an adequate guard. He's not terrible. He's not great, but he's adequate. So you have him there at left guard. Center. This is where it gets a little interesting to me. When they used to have Travis Fredrickson at center, that was their all-pro center, their rock, their backbone of this offensive line and this offense. Now you have a young guy who's not even proven yet. He's going to be what looks like he's going to be given this center position, this center job, and hopefully he can hold up, because Tyler Biadasz, who's now taking over center, he's got to fill those big, large shoes of a Pro Bowl center and now try to at least be good enough to hold that down. That's a big question mark. And then when you go on the right side, you have Zach Martin. No question. Guy's an all-pro. He's amazing. He hardly gets hurt. He did get banged up last year, but he hardly gets hurt. He is their best offensive lineman, whether he played left tackle or any other spot. And then you got Lyle Collins, a guy who was undrafted. The Cowboys groomed him, developed him, and he's turned out to be a very solid right tackle for them. So for me, right guard, right tackle, not really a concern for me. But other than that, you got center, who to me has to prove himself. You have Tyrone Smith, who has to prove that he can stay healthy and to keep locking down that left side. And then Connor Williams, he's just got to keep developing. So for me, it's a little bit of a concern going into week 1.
All right, I took a look, and I was wrong about the Bengals, but it was the Cowboys, the Giants, the Denver Broncos, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Carolina Panthers.
Okay.
So I mean, that could have been a little bit interesting.
I would have much
for
rather.
some other
I would have much rather have seen either the Cardinals or the Panthers to me, because Panthers that young up and coming team. They just got Sam Darnold. Like that to me would have been perfect because they got their new franchise quarterback from the Jets. Is he going to improve? Is he going to help this team out? They got a lot of weapons, a lot of young guys on that defense that are really balling out. So there's a lot to like right there. There's a lot of lot of juice there flowing. I think that would have been a better selection. I don't know why they went with the Cowboys. Again.
They did throw out a bonus team, and that was they said they couldn't be part of it again because this is what it's messed up because they said the criteria. I'm just reading here. It says bonus team. It says Jacksonville Jaguars, but it can't be because it would be Urban Meyer's first year, so he's ineligible to do it.
Right.
But they said an eligible team to volunteer tribute to 2021 season of Hard Knocks. All right, yeah. So I don't know why they threw that as a bonus team, but I mean they can't obviously do it. But
Denver,
I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah.
The Carolina Panthers, absolutely, and even the Cardinals there.
Cardinals
with their
would have
whole set
excited.
here
They got
too.
a lot of different.
Chandler Jones comes back, so they see him tied up with J.J. Watt. Again, Kyler Murray, young quarterback. You've got the veteran receivers and plus the young guys are there still too.
But you look at that defense too. That defense, now that they have Chandler Jones back, they got J.J. Watt on the other side opposite him, and the youth that they've managed to put together on that team, they look to be a dangerous defense for the Arizona Cardinals. And then you look at Denver. Like Denver I wouldn't do this year. Denver, to me, I would hold. If I'm HBO and I'm thinking about this, I would hold off until they get a new quarterback. Like if they draft one, like maybe the next draft that we have, and they draft a quarterback to bring in to be the guy, then it would be intriguing. Then it's like, okay, yeah, I'm dialed in. I want to see how good this quarterback is. What's his demeanor? How well is he acclimating with all these receivers and everything? That to me would be exciting too. But Panthers to me all the way would be that would have been the choice.
Absolutely. We've got Dave Rourke in the house with us tonight.
What's going on, Dave? Welcome to the show.
Shouting out to Wu-Tang. Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah, Wu-Tang
Let's go,
in the
baby.
house. I wish I could play some of that Wu-Tang, man.
I know.
I mean, right now,
due to
I would get
copyright
sued if I did.
issues,
Due
we
to
will
copyright.
not be
Yeah.
able to.
Right,
but yeah, really appreciate you on the show.
Yeah, definitely. We were just chiming in on the Hard Knocks real quick. The Cowboys, why are they on Hard Knocks? I don't get it.
know.
You know what I mean? There's other teams, and like you said, the Broncos were one of them. But again, like you said, also not that compelling right now. And there is a bit of a quarterback battle, I guess, that could be a little bit for them. But still, I think they would rather see a team that's almost like on an ascending trail right now. And
Cardinals,
I think there's
Panthers.
a lot of questions here with the Broncos. And when it comes to them, we will get to those questions in a few weeks. But, so you talk about the O-line. We just brought up that. That's a big question here for them. For the Cowboys, it is, who knows, are they going to be able to stay healthy? That left side mainly is their weakness because Dak Prescott, he was getting pressured a lot because of that weakness, because of the injuries there that they kind of got
Tyrone Smith
bitten
wasn't
with
there.
last year. Which and people want to say, he was, playing well and might have been on an MVP course, but I mean, he only did play 5 games or 6 games.
But I don't think people realize.
Well, he threw like 6 touchdowns and 4 picks, though, still, too. So, I mean, he wasn't spectacular. He was throwing 68%, but it seems like almost that was what the amount was to the other team, possibly.
True. I mean, but the other thing, too, is I don't think people realize, like, everyone, when you say, like, Tyrone Smith to protect a guy like Dak, is I don't think people realize how banged up his back is. He's severely injured in his back, and he's already had 2 surgeries to try to correct it.
It's a continuous story that keeps happening.
And that's not the only injury. He's had lower leg issues and everything else. So hopefully for Tyron's sake, for the Cowboys' sake, they're going to need him all season.
Right, and we're not going to pose that as a question, but a lot of people have been asking, maybe the biggest question for these guys is how is Dak Prescott going to be able to play? Is he going to be able to warm up quick right in the beginning of the season? I mean, they do play this Hall of Fame game coming up.
Well, you don't have to worry about
that.
that.
They are in camp right now.
It's already been reported today. He's medically cleared, 100% ready to go.
100%. So, I mean, he should be good.
He's going to be good.
100%. See him out there, recovered well. We saw it when he went down with the injury. And the thing is about having that injury, when he did, was kind of better timing that he had it earlier on.
Right, so he didn't linger into this season.
To recover from it. In other news, about Saquon, we've heard other things about it, and that's very big. But
all right,
Dak Prescott, we're not going to get in that whole thing.
No, we're done.
But now we're going to talk about the offensive line and the struggles that they had, and Mike McCarthy too. I was looking at Zeke again last year, and he even got some chunky yards here and there. But again, is he? My question for them is Zeke going to be more involved in the offense? Because we know what it was like when Kellen Moore was there before. Mike McCarthy, we already knew what we were going to get out of him. He's going to spread it wide, barely run, and trying to beat you deep. And that's what they did a lot of times. But then they had Andy Dalton trying to do that for you, depleted offensive line. And really, Zeke, he only had 224 attempts, and he hasn't had that low amount since his second year in the league. When there's, again, more injuries upon them and struggled. And so now he hasn't been able to be who he is, and they gave him that money for one, check, and then two, they really needed this offense to revolve around him, get that ground game going. That alleviates the pressure off of those backup quarterbacks that were in, and that would have got this offense going, become a more balanced offense. They run so much better when they're balanced and they're handing the ball off to Zeke, and now to give it to Dak Prescott, who had suffered that injury before, and I'm sure doesn't want to take any more hits to potentially have another one.
Right.
Spread out that passing game and get it to these targets that they have.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is like with Mike McCarthy, it's an interesting dilemma here. Is like he's got a lot of heat already being a kind of like a new coach for Dallas. And I think it is runs along those lines like you brought up. Like he's more of a offensive, like when he was calling plays in Green Bay, when he was basically calling all the plays and everything, we already know what he likes to do. He likes to throw the ball a lot. He doesn't really like to run the ball. If he didn't have to run the ball to mix it up, he wouldn't. He would just throw all day long. So we know his backstory. But now he's teamed up with Kellen Moore, who's been with Dallas for quite some time as the offensive coordinator, and has done an amazing job for Dallas. He really has. With all those weapons that he has, and Dak and Zeke able to utilize all those guys, he's been able to balance. He's been able to keep it balanced fairly. They do play action off of Zeke's running because there's a lot of things you got to worry about against this Dallas offense. You got a ton of receivers that they throw to. You know what I mean? You have a tight end who is a little bit underrated, and then you in Blake Jarwin, and you also have Dak and Zeke in the backfield. So with all that being said, I feel like there's an internal kind of a little bit of a friction between McCarthy and Kellen Moore on how to call a game, despite what the game plan is going in. And I feel like we saw that last season. We saw Dallas not run the ball as much as they normally did with Kellen Moore. And now that Mike McCarthy's there, you're seeing them throw the ball more and run less. I wonder if that's going to continue into this season. Hopefully it doesn't, because if Mike McCarthy's smart, if Kellen Moore can handle his job, let him do his job. Let him keep the offense balanced and keep this train moving forward. And Mike McCarthy, you just be the head coach. You just be the guy who manages the game, call timeouts when you need to call them. You know what I mean? Kick a field goal. Make those decisions throughout the game and let Kellen Moore do his job. That's where I feel where that has to lie.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like we said over and over, that he gets pretty easy to read. I mean, we're if I can figure out what play he's going to pull out next, I'm sure any defensive linebacker and things like that are going to be able to call it there by watching film and things on him. We saw the mistakes that they made on defense in hiring an old defensive coordinator that is kind of out of the game and hasn't worked out for them. Now they've moved on, and now they've got a new defensive coordinator in there now from the Atlanta Falcons here, Dan Quinn. What kind of questions do you have about Dan Quinn here now, Joe?
And to me, because he's new and he's coming into this Dallas team, and everyone's like, well, we got Dan Quinn. Is it an upgrade? Yes, it's an upgrade. It's a guy that's a little bit more up to date with his schemes and trying to be able to trick quarterbacks with the schemes and what have you. But if you remember back in Atlanta's when he got hired to be the head coach and to help with that defense and try to change and turn around that defense. Mind you, that defense already had premier talent straight up the middle. Grady Jarrett at D-tackle. They had Deion Jones at linebacker. They had newly acquired through the draft Keanu Neal. And when those guys were healthy and everything, that defense was already stacked with premier talent. And Dan Quinn comes in there, and nothing changes. Over the years that he's been with Atlanta, nothing got better. And he went through year after year after year of adding more defensive talent, whether it be the draft or free agency. and still nothing changed there. Now he comes to Dallas, and I'm sorry, I hate to be Debbie Downer on this, but Dan Quinn coming over here does not answer all the questions on defense. He just doesn't.
And he brings Keanu O'Neal there with him, and DeMonte KZ too as well. So
yeah, but
it's
those
kind of
guys.
funny,
but the thing is with
interesting
them
with
is that they're injured all the time.
Yeah.
So it's great that you bring that youth over with you, but how long are they going to last on the football field? And are they going to be there to make a difference? Those guys are injured almost the last 2 years. They haven't even played pretty much. So do I think the Cowboys defense is going to struggle this year? Yes, and the reason is yes. Did they manage to add more talent? Absolutely. So if you're a Cowboys fan listening to this, I'm sorry, but I'm being realistic about this. Is when you have a new D coordinator come in, and now he's got to teach a new defensive scheme to these players, not only the veterans but also the youth that they've managed to acquire on this team. On paper, the defense looks like it could make a big jump. It really does. I mean, when you're looking at their draft pick in the first round of Micah Parsons, the guy's going to be an absolute beast. What does he do better than anybody coming out of this year's draft? He's one of the best linebackers. He's probably the best linebacker to shut down the run game, to pass rush the quarterback. But other than that, if they're looking at Micah Parsons as being a three down type of linebacker in terms of maybe playing zone coverages and everything, I think that's where he's going to struggle big time. So you got pros and cons to every player that's on this team. Calvin Joseph right now is penciled in as one of the starting corners. He's essentially they drafted him in the second round this past draft, and they're throwing him in there, and hopefully he can lock it down on that one side. Trayvon Diggs was a great pickup for them in 2020. He's going to lock that other spot down at corner. And then you have guys right now that are trying to fight for a position and trying to prove themselves. Listen, I understand they got DeMarcus Lawrence on the DN spot, and he's one of the best DNs and pass rushers to ever do it, but he got double-teamed an awful lot last year, and he needed help. And this year you look at this defensive line, and I'm sorry, but I'm looking at the D-line, I'm saying nothing scares me. They bring over Carlos Watkins from Houston, hoping he can be one of the answers at D-tackle. He's an average D-tackle right now. He still needs to further develop. You got Tristan Hill, not the worst D-tackle, but not a guy that's going to strike fear into any offense's their game plan. And then you got Neville Gallimore, who I think is an underrated guy who could kind of surprise some people, but I don't think this year will be his breakout year, so to speak. So there's a lot of different changes that they made, and with all these changes in personnel-wise, and now you have a new D coordinator, I think it's just going to be a little too much to ask for them to be a top 15 type of defense. I still feel like they're going to be 25 to 20 range. They'll be a little bit better, but they're not going to be enough to kind of match that same playing style. Like the offense is just killing it. You know what I mean? They'll be able to put up points. Can the defense stop from other teams putting up points? I think they're still going to struggle.
Right, and that would be the heel, I guess, of this team. It would stop them to getting from where they need to get. And we get to see it right in front of us, too, on Hard Knocks, too.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is you got Randy Gregory now returning. Yeah. I mean, good pass rusher. Maybe. He's okay, but how long is he going to stay in the league? Because it seems like he can never stay out of trouble. So, I mean, that remains to be seen. But, I mean, again, with Dan Quinn being new, with some of these new acquisitions that they got, I think their linebacking core is one of the best in the division. Mm-hmm. I mean, by far. I mean, I'm going basically, obviously, off of Micah Parsons' potential. Mm-hmm. But when you got Jalen Smith and you got like Randy Gregory as like a joker type linebacker, mm-hmm. I don't know. I just feel like there's going to be too much that they have to try to get used to with the scheme with Dan Quinn and everything, and Dan Quinn being new. I think it's too much to ask for them to make a huge jump.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, so that's the Dallas Cowboys' biggest questions. Let us know if you guys have your questions out there for any of these teams. NFC East, the Cowboys, the Giants, the Eagles, and the Washington football team. We're going to be calling that one more season again. We'll see what happens moving forward.
Washington wussies. Washington women's.
I think I saw one back in the day, one of their teams. I mean, they were called the Redskins one time, but I think they were called something else like that, something weird. Oh, man, I can't remember. Oh, I have to look it
Washington
up
Willy
again.
Wonkas.
Yeah, it was something weird. It's like, really? Like, they went by that? I'm like, that just doesn't seem right. That doesn't
Washington
seem like a football
weirdos.
team.
I can go
But
all day.
Anyways,
Washington,
all right, well,
you
let's
need help
go on.
picking a
Let's
name?
move on to the New York Football Giants. How about that? We're the biggest questions for the New York Giants, my team. You know, I had a few questions last season. I definitely have some moving forward. Maybe not the same ones. A lot of people want to bring up, too, in media. They just want to drum the same whole thing. They made a mistake getting Saquon and all this other junk and all this crap. But still the biggest looming question I think that everybody has to have, and what you have to do is if Daniel Jones improves with the team this season, is he a lock-in to stay? What kind of contract would they give him here?
And that's the thing. This is going to be a big deal for Daniel Jones, I feel like, this year. I mean, you look at what they've
absolutely.
done this offseason to kind of help him out. You know what I mean? When you go back a year, even you go back 2 years, and this Giants team literally had no receivers. Like, Sterling Shepard was heavily injured, wasn't able to stay on the football field. Darius Slayton was still kind of trying to fight his way into the starting ranks. Then last season, you know, Slayton, he did a good enough job to be the starter. Sterling Shepard was healthier than he's ever been. He managed to produce some good numbers. And they just needed that. They need a true number one guy. They need a true guy to bring him in and kind of help this offense as a whole to really catapult, the deep ball, attack the defenses deep down the football field, and mix it up a little bit. And yes, of course, obviously, Saquon Barkley was not there last year at all. So that really, really hurt this offense. Now that Barkley's coming back, he looks like in phenomenal shape right now. He's going to come back with a chip on his shoulder. He's going to prove everybody wrong and that he can be the guy for this team and continue forward. But take a look at this. So the Giants' offensive line has gotten better. I mean, they're developing guys. They're getting them ready. It looks like Matt Pert is due to be the right tackle for the Giants
so far, yes.
this upcoming year. So that's a little exciting to see a new face at that position and see what he can do to help protect Daniel Jones. Other than that, you look at the receiving corps, look at Kenny Galladay. Huge pickup. I think one of the biggest pickups for any team this year was getting Kenny Galladay to New York to have a legitimate number one who can threaten the deep ball, threaten anything underneath. And you have Sterling Shepard who can stay healthy. You have Darius Slayton. You have a draft pick that they drafted in the first round, Kadarius Toney, who looks like if he can learn this playbook, if he can get, a little bit more involved, I think with him in the slot would be absolutely deadly. And then tight end has been a weakness of them. You know what I mean? They didn't. Evan Ingram, who's been a complete bust. I mean, I've been a fan of his coming out of college and thought that he was going to do well, but man, Evan Ingram has let everybody down in New York. He just drops balls way too often for a guy with his athletic ability and his playmaking ability. He just has fallen way short of that. So that's a little concerning for them.
From that draft class there, we talked about O.J. Howard there with the Tampa Bay Bucks and how maybe electric he could be with that offense. And then Evan Ingram was right there with it.
Yeah.
Both of those guys seem like busts at this point. Evan Ingram can make some of those spectacular one-handed catches, but then the dropsies.
He
Case
just
for the
drops too many.
dropsies, especially last season, which makes it really disheartening. And you talk about weak tight ends for a second, though. Trololo, I mean, they bring him back in for another year in extension. He actually looked pretty good at times for them.
Toilolo,
You know what I mean? They got a little bit more depth this season with that, with the tight end, more like what the Patriots would do, I guess, for them. But, again, Evan Ingram, not exactly what they wanted from him.
No, not at all. And then you bring up Levine Toilolo. He's been a journeyman. Like, everywhere he's gone, he's never really been able to break that lineup, to be a excuse me, to be a every down type of player to kind of really help whatever team he's on. We've seen him with Atlanta, which was one of his earlier stops. He was with them for quite some time, but never really helped out the team very much. So now once again he's coming back. He's going to the Giants. Hopefully he can help out, especially in the red zone. He's a gigantic, tall dude. Like you can't miss him.
Oh yeah.
Not even Daniel Jones could overthrow this guy. So I feel like if they utilize him a little bit more, like as they get in the red zone, maybe or something like that, he's got to have better hands than Evan Ingram, right? I mean, so it's hard to
Yeah,
figure out
you would
there.
hope. And they're a different style here. You got Kyle Rudolph, the veteran, too, as well for them.
Yeah, but
Again, and you bring up the wide receiver. That's the one thing this team has been lacking for him
Big
to
time.
get those weapons, because you've seen some great throws out of Daniel Jones and things like that. But then it's, again, I've talked about this with Brian Noe from Fox Sports Radio when we had him on, and we brought up the fact that it's the timing of the turnovers that really shot you in the foot. And I'm looking at games, and I was an Eli supporter for the longest time too, as well, right until he retired.
Definitely.
And also I give everybody a shot. You give you a chance. You got every little bit until you prove me wrong in a sense here. And I give Daniel Jones a shot. He's the guy I wanted. I was hoping maybe to slide back and get him a little further, and then maybe get somebody in the defensive spot. But again, I'm supporting him, but then times I'm watching the games, and then I'm even following it myself and looking at it. I'm like, man, we are in this game. And if it just wasn't for him, we would be there. Like in that Pittsburgh game, in what was it? Even I think the Bucs game. There were so many games that they were close in that we're like, man, we're really toe to toe with these guys. We're contending here, and just couldn't get it done. And our defense was playing great. But again, that's the questions that's looming this team here. Daniel Jones, make that next step. I just hope that the team doesn't try and do what a lot of teams that we talk about here and just say, well, this isn't the guy. We'll just grab the next rookie and the next one or whatever and reset and figure it out.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is like this is his prove-it year. It has to be. We've seen him struggle, but we also seen flashes of him playing pretty well. So
most accurate in the deep ball.
yeah, you could always bring
he is
that
out of
up.
everybody. Yeah, exactly.
That's
He is.
fine.
All
but
last season.
That's fine, but you're not winning games. You know what I mean? So that's the bottom line. Can he help this team win games? Don't turn the ball over. Don't fumble the ball.
Absolutely.
Don't throw picks. And I know he's trying his hardest. I understand, like, when the game is on the line, or when they've tried to like drive down the football field to try to at least tie it or go ahead, it seems like he's trying to force it because he knows he didn't have enough around him.
Right.
But now, this year, you cannot make that excuse anymore. You're going to have Saquon Barkley in the backfield, which is going to really help Daniel Jones as well, because he's a huge threat to any defense. We've seen what he could do when he first got drafted. They literally had no offensive line when he got drafted. None. Nobody could block. And they had no receivers. And they would hand the ball off to him, and he'd just rip off 20 yards out of nowhere, or 30 or 40 or whatever, and get touchdowns. And people were like, wow, he's legit. If you can do that with the team that he got drafted by, then imagine what he could do this year with a better offensive line, a ton of weapons to throw to, and mix it up, and himself, of course. So, Daniel Jones, if you fail this year, I think the Giants are going to look in that direction. They at least have to entertain the idea that if Daniel Jones struggles this year with everything that he has around him, that yes, you may have to go maybe in the draft and look for another quarterback, because right now it looks like their window of opportunity has just opened up. You look at how well their defense was playing last year. They were like top 10 in the NFC, but top 15 overall in the NFL. And then their offense was lacking. Now it looks like on paper that your offense shouldn't be lacking. It should definitely play really well this year. You should be able to score anywhere from 15 to 21 points easily week to week. So if they can do that with this defense, and mind you, as good as the defense was last year, they got better in the offseason. So they filled a lot of holes, and now they're all coming to play together finally with a solid team. A lot of holes filled. Adoree Jackson, who, listen, they were missing a cornerback last year. And they didn't really they tried their young guys out that were there, and it just didn't work out. Now they bring in Adoree Jackson, who's only 25 years old, and I've seen him play for USC. I've seen him play for Tennessee in man-to-man coverage, and he's locked down. So you got James Bradbury on one side, Adoree Jackson on the other. You got was it Ken? What's the safety? Is it what's the new
Xavier
safety?
McKinney?
Xavier McKinney. I don't know why I was going to go. I was going to actually say Kenny or something.
Yeah, I know.
But
I
Xavier
get
McKinney, he's also got to prove himself too. Like, he played well, but he's got to up his game. So everybody, I mean, as a whole, like, this defense looks pretty darn good on paper, and that leads me to my next question. I'm just going to say, rip it right off, is
Yeah.
do the Giants have a top 10 defense? And I honestly think with all the additions that they made, with all the holes that they had, and they didn't have a lot of holes, don't get me wrong, but with the team, with Blake Martinez as their middle linebacker, as a guy who had one of the highest tackling totals in stats last year, just an amazing linebacker, sniffed out run plays like anything, was phenomenal. You add to that Lorenzo Carter, who played really well in a pass rushing role for the Giants, wreaking havoc in the backfield. Leonard Williams, they managed to bring him back, which I thought was going to be a hurdle and a half for the Giants to do. They were able to work things out. Leonard Williams, one of the best D tackles in the league. Phenomenal to bring him back. Dexter Lawrence to have that finish off at that 3-4 end spot. And then this linebacking core is so good. And then they managed to add a talent late in the draft by the name of Azeez Ojulari from Georgia, one of the premier pass rushers off the edge. This is going to add a whole other element to this defensive pass rush. And like we mentioned before, their secondary, and they also have Jabril Peppers back there too at safety. So they are one of the most solid defenses right now on paper. And I strongly believe that they made a big leap last year in defense. They're going to make another leap, and they will be in the top 10.
Absolutely. We got Mike Tackett in the house with us tonight. My man, Mike Tackett, he says, I believe it was Sir David Chappelle that stated, Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to F with.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Mikey.
Chappelle show, nothing like it. I mean, if you guys, a lot of people out there
Yes.
don't know. Dave Chappelle was the shit.
You got to
Had
check it
great
out.
rappers on there all the time, and he'd hanging with them and stuff. But RZA right there, with the Wu-Tang, love those guys too, absolutely. The Giants, they added again on defense like you're talking about, and add that depth. I mean, they could potentially be a top 10 because the thing is, the defense can't do it all, and the problem was this offense, like you said, just to touch back on the offense again. 31st overall offense in the league. When you break that down into other numbers,
right,
when it got into the red zone, they were 31st. So they only converted about 46% in the red zone every time they visited. They visited 41 times, only converted 19 times.
Yeah.
I mean, that's any points, not even just a touchdown. That's a field goal or something. And then third down conversions, 29th also. So not converting on third down, shortening up, being out there. The defense always on the field, getting tired, and eventually giving up the bigger plays. And that's what we saw. This team was in it. And then a turnover or something like that would happen.
Defense right
or
back out
just
there.
a 3 and out, defense back up there, and then bang, bang, game over.
And
what happened?
Another thing that those stats show me, too, is just how important Saquon Barkley is.
Absolutely.
Because you look at that, when you get into the red zone, things are a little tighter. Everything's, the defense is not as spread out as you'd like them to be or like to get them to be. And now this is where you could lean on a guy like Saquon Barkley or maybe Levine Toilolo, at tight end. Or have both Evan Ingram, and hopefully he catches the ball next time. You know what I mean? But now you also have a lot more weapons. You look at, you go back to that, what they really, all they had was Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton, and that's pretty much it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Darius Slayton, a surprise,
up-and-coming player.
up and coming player that people really aren't intimidated by even at this point.
No.
So again, so what did they do? Well, we talked about it. Everybody was like, "Oh, Saquon's got another," and basically in the beginning, those first couple of games, they just pinned their ears back and went after Saquon. Stop the run, because we're not afraid of anything else. Now maybe the addition here of getting Kenny Galladay,
100%.
mix up if John Ross can stay healthy up in the middle, and then have Sterling Shepard too. I mean, they have the depth right here. They can mix and match, and that's when you get those mismatches on linebackers trying to guard Sterling Shepard or somewhere, or your fourth DB back in there, getting a guy. If you go single high safety, getting a guy in the box and get one of those guys back. And then even Kadarius Toney, if he can limit the drops and things like that, get a better training camp here. He didn't look so good in the rookie camp so far, but training camps moving forward,
that's
this
what
is
they're for.
Adding some potential. And then that would open up the running game on top of it too as well.
But that's the thing, is like that all opens up. You put Barkley in there, or Saquon Barkley, you put him in there. In those situations, it does change everything all over. Now they can't, like, hey, we're just going to pressure Daniel Jones. We're not worried about whoever they got running the ball. We're just going to pressure Daniel Jones, and he's going to somehow screw up. That's what defense we're looking forward to. Because he's like, what do they have? We'll double team Sterling Shepard. We'll go man-to-man against Slayton because it's not like he has to beat them over the top. You can't. It's the red zone. You're close. That goes by running routes and everything. And if you don't have enough weapons other than those two, they could double team both sides with a safety in the corner and the same thing on the other side. So they just took him out of the game. And now they're going to have all these guys returning healthy. You got Barkley, which is a complete difference maker, and then more weapons for Daniel Jones to distribute the ball. There's no question that this offense is going to be better. And they're definitely going to be better in the red zone, hands down.
Absolutely. Mike Tackett chiming in with us tonight. He says Daniel Jones is solid as a QB2. I can see the New York Giants pursuing someone such as Derek Carr in free agency next year, unless they land themselves in a position to get a top 5 pick in this year's draft.
And I'm going to go with the latter part of that.
What do you think
because
about
that's what they're going to have to do is the latter part. Derek Carr's not going anywhere. He's not going to be a free agent.
Right.
That guy's locked up for life. He ain't going to play nowhere.
It seems like it so far. I mean, I get everything that you hear out of
I am
over
tired.
there in Vegas.
I am
because
sick and tired of hearing everybody keep saying about, Derek Carr is going to leave. He needs to go. He's not that good. No, Derek Carr is the quarterback for the Raiders. That's it.
Pulls out.
Yeah.
It's absolutely asinine for all the media out there that keep saying this over and over. Is Gruden happy? Is this, that, and the other thing? Derek Carr is the quarterback. That's it. That's the end of the story. He's not going nowhere.
Yeah, and then that's what you hear is that those guys are joined at the hip. Like we just heard something from Mike Mayock again that is saying these guys are like an awkward, weird marriage, that they have.
And you
here.
want to know why? It's because Derek Carr and Gruden. Listen, Gruden is seen as one of these offensive guru types, right? Mm-hmm. He still needs to upgrade his game too, as far as play calling. Red zone, he's terrible. But Derek Carr. I didn't know this. Like you said, you knew this already. But Derek Carr has a photographic memory. I had no idea. And
a photogenic personality.
That's right. And after hearing that, I'm like, that's why Gruden loves him.
Yeah.
Because not only could he memorize the playbook in like 2.2 seconds and know everything about Gruden's offense, which is complex, but also he can say, hey, John, hey, listen. He goes, last year in day 4 of training camp, you told me that if I saw this defensive look to change the play to this, yeah. So look, that's what we're gonna do here because they keep running it. And Gruden was surprised. He was like, "Holy, wait! I never said that." He had to actually go back to his notes to find out. I did actually tell him that. You know what I mean? So Gruden, because of not only because of Carr's mental capacity for the game and everything, but also because he's a darn good quarterback. I know a lot of people want to say, oh, he's not that good, he's terrible, but go look at his stats last year. Look at his stats. His stats don't lie. Had one of the highest completion rates of anybody. He was top 5 in the league last year. And everyone keeps dogging him. Threw for over 4,000 yards in an offense that runs the ball a lot. I mean, so I don't know. We'll get off that
I know.
topic.
Again, like I said, media is drumming on certain stories all the time. They want
It's
Derek Carr to
ridiculous.
go somewhere else. It's hilarious.
The only way.
You're hearing the opposite all the time everywhere else from Vegas in that way.
Right,
that direction.
exactly.
But yeah, I know. The big question here, Daniel Jones, now the defense, can they be a top 10 defense? We'll see moving forward with this team. We're talking about the New York Giants, the NFC East biggest questions. I just want to take a real quick break just to say thank you to Buck Environmental Solutions. By the way, they are bringing you this show. If you got problems with ticks and things like that, we live in the forest, out here in the boonies here. So we have ticks all the time. Buck Environmental Solutions, buckenvironmentalsolutions.com, and you can also reach them at 845-665-1950. My man James Buck.
If you're
will
in
take
the
care of
local area, everybody, you have
Absolutely.
to be in
the
around
local
the
area.
Albany,
so you
New
gotta
York
move
area.
here, and then
So,
we'll
Mike,
take
I'm
care of
sorry.
you.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Sorry,
you live
can't-
down in Florida,
Can't
so
help you in Ocala, buddy, but so there you go. But next, Joe, what do you got for questions here? Again,
for the Eagles.
no, we got one more for the
You got
Giants.
one more for the
don't we?
Giants?
Yeah. Well, did you ask about can the Giants pass rush step up in this whole thing? Did you
That's not
encapsulate
my
that
question.
in that whole thing? Oh, that was supposed to be mine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. I didn't know we were alternating.
I
thought you were talking
had
defense.
the deal with if
Okay.
Daniel Jones improved
Oh,
this
okay.
year. So then when you took that, I went on to the next one.
Okay. So we're moving on. So there you go. If you look at the pass rush, then let me touch on this quick because you know how much I like to complain about the Giants too as well.
You do a lot of complaining about
I
the
do,
Giants.
but I mean, again, I didn't.
Some
really
of it's
want,
legitimate.
Well,
I'll give it. Some of it is.
I'm harsh. You know, I'm harsh, but I'm fair, I think. I mean,
Sometimes.
Leonard Williams, I didn't really want him in the first point, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know you did.
I didn't want to pay him a big deal and everything and all this stuff. We still have him. He ended up being our best pass rusher or sack leader last season. And I think we needed more, definitely, too, in the pass rush situation because he can't be the guy doing it himself. So they do add a few people here to help out a little. But, I mean, you lose Dalvin Tomlinson here, so that's a big part for your defense here on the interior for them as well. But I just think, can they step up here? And it shouldn't have to be, for me, Leonard Williams' job to be that guy, to be that off pass rusher.
It won't be either because you look at what they've done. They filled holes that they were missing, right? So Leonard Williams, I'm sorry, flat out one of the best D tackles in football. And in this 3-4 defense that he plays the end, which good luck, offensive lineman. The guy's an absolute beast, so he can take on double teams. And upon that, they have pass rushers now. They have Lorenzo Carter coming off the edge, who did a pretty darn good job last season, finally getting his first real start of the season. And then now you have Azeez Ojulari, who I think is going to come in and be able to rush either opposite edge of Lorenzo, or maybe you have them both on the same side and do like a heavy rush off of a one edge in particular on left or right side. So they have a lot of really high talented players that can deliver. And you look at this 3-4 defense, it's a 3-4 defense. So you're not really asking a lot. If you get anything from your three down linemen, like Lorenzo, or like Lorenzo, like Big Cat Williams did, he had double-digit sacks as a 3-4 DN. That is unheard of. It's crazy. And for him to have that, that's a huge bonus to this defense. Really, the core of this defense is your four linebackers. What can they do? And they did a great job developing chemistry last season and coming into their own. And now by adding some more talent on top of it, I think the sky's the limit for this defense. By no means will they have a shortage of getting racking up the sacks and getting after the quarterback.
All right, so now we are moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles. There we go.
Right.
Philadelphia Eagles. So, Joe, what do we got for the questions here for the Philadelphia Eagles?
For the Eagles, first question I have is the Eagles linebacking core a weakness? And a lot of Philly fans might be out there and be like, yeah, you're probably right, because when you look at this team as a whole, you look at the offense, they got a lot of youth, they got a lot to prove, and then you look at the defense, they got the same kind of same sort of defensive line. Now, what they've managed to add to this D line is they have Brandon Graham and they have a Derek Barnett, who are really good pass rushers, and then in the middle, obviously, Fletcher Cox, one of the all-pro D tackles, one of the best out there. But what they've managed to bring in, an underrated type of D tackle from the Pittsburgh Steelers and Javon Hargrove. That guy's a really good D tackle. Kind of went under the radar when he was in Pittsburgh, except for the Steeler fans. They know all about him. But now they managed to put him next to Cox. No pun intended. And he is going to create pressure. He's going to create pressure up the middle, no questions asked, and that's going to help the ends a lot.
He starts to come, and then he pulls out.
And the ends are going to be thankful for this move, because now you're going to have Fletcher Cox, you're going to have Javon Hargrove to really collapse the inside of that pocket, and it's going to help the ends get there and get sacks. So that's one strength that they have. Secondary-wise, they got Avonte Maddox returning, pretty darn good corner. He's definitely underrated for sure. And they have some other spots. You got Darius Slay.
Yep.
All-pro corner. Got banged up last year, though. He didn't play a full season. So hopefully he can last this year for them, because he was locked down, lights out when he was playing. And then you look at the linebackers, and there's a lot of no-names. There's a lot of guys that have been on the team.
Yeah,
haven't really proven
like,
themselves.
If you know the team, you know these guys. But
not even, because you got guys like Jannard Avery, who's coming from Cleveland.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like a last resort, pickup. Don't get me wrong, Jannard Avery has played okay football for Cleveland. Now you bring him in here, and right now he's penciled in as a starter. You have T.J. Edwards. I'm sorry, not good enough to hold it down. And Alex Singleton, I don't know where they're going with this. It looks like this is definitely a huge weakness for them, and I feel like this is where they're going to get exposed, is over the middle of the football field. These linebackers aren't going to be able to make an impact, and that's where I think the real big downturn on this team goes, is how weak this linebacking core is. I don't think they're going to be able to help out in coverage. They're not going to they're going to miss a lot of assignments. There's going to be a lot of issues with this team, much like we saw with the Rams defense. And the Rams defense, when they had a weak linebacking core, they got shredded over the middle of the football field. I feel like that's going to happen to this defense, and it's going to be because they didn't find replacements for all the free agents, guys that have left. So I definitely think the linebacking core is a huge weakness that they really need to address. And there's guys out there. You got
Quan Alexander is now possibly going back to the Saints for a little bit.
But he's
out there. KJ Wright's still even out there. I mean, a veteran that
KJ
still
Wright,
can do something
Quan
for
Alexander, guys that could still play. Give them a 1-year deal, and they could be your stopgap linebackers, and I think they would fit the system not only well, but also guys that could come in and help teach these younger guys how to play. So there's moves that they could still do, but right now, looking at this team, that's a huge weakness to me, and it's probably going to hurt them when they play strong offenses.
Right, and I took a look at it, and I mean, I see the same thing you're talking about. I like their front four, their D-line, and then after that,
really
you have the gap in the linebackers.
And then their secondary.
If you look at their secondary, it's pretty good. Yeah,
Anthony Harris,
absolutely coming, from the Vikings, and
really good.
But again, Darius Slay, I think it was almost been a little underwhelming, a little bit. I mean, just because what you kind of expected coming from him, and after being upset in Detroit and then moving over to here for the Philadelphia Eagles. But again, that is their weakness there, the linebacking core, and that's where teams can penetrate and attack them. And for a team that needs to be built to strong at the linebacking situation to face these other teams in this division, that a lot of their strength is the linebacking core here, and a lot of these teams in this division, we said it already, it seemed like since maybe even that Zeke got there and Dallas was a strong running team, that these teams built their defenses to stop the run. And now they're trying to fill out the other spots to cover it over now on the passing game as well.
Yeah.
That's why now Washington, very dangerous. The Giants are getting better, you know what I mean? And now Philadelphia is kind of left hanging there.
And you see that every single year, though, too. In any division, teams do that. Teams will plan on the offseason and say, okay, what did we fail at going against our division rival? What strength do they have that we don't have? What can we do to change to beat them? And they take that in the offseason and say, okay, well, we were really weak at stopping the pass against, we'll just say, the Eagles, like the Giants. Well, I know they weren't, but let's just say that the Giants struggled against the Eagles in their passing attack. Well, the Giants, clearly, this offseason, look what they did. They added a weakness that they had at cornerback opposite Bradbury, and they add a young, up-and-coming, a guy that's a pretty good player, and I think he's going to fit really well, Adoree Jackson. Insert him there. Weakness gone. You know what I mean? So teams do that with every single division, every single year. Teams are looking for ways to combat what they were weak at against their divisional opponents.
Absolutely, and like we were questioning why even Logan Ryan was back in that safety spot so much. He should have probably been in there and plugged that spot at corner. But now they've got Adoree Jackson there now, so Logan Ryan can just float back there at safety again still.
He can float around.
Also, you have Xavier McKinney again, who was very limited because of the injury early on in his career here.
Back.
Now he hasn't even had a full season, so now, again, like you said, coming back into this season, get a full season under his belt and progress.
And there's a
now
lot of
it's
flexibility.
Very dangerous. Like you said, I like the flexibility altogether. Just
because
like
you look
said.
At now that they have Adoree Jackson, but you also have Logan Ryan. Logan Ryan could play outside corner, and you could slide Adoree Jackson in because he's a little quicker in the slot. When you have three receiver sets, that's going to be
and what they
nice.
also like to do is put Jabril Peppers in the box and rush him too as well. coming out of the safety spot.
Oh,
And
they're still
instead of
gonna do
even
that,
going
yeah.
single high safety like they do and do it, they can even bring both Logan Ryan and potentially McKinney back there and still put him in as like a spot linebacker, to go in and just pass rush with Jabril Peppers.
You don't want to give up your, too many of the good
the
plays.
game plans. Yeah, who knows?
You
But
stop telling the Eagles.
yeah,
fans all
absolutely.
your-
Yeah, so I mean, the defense is probably a spot here for. So then let's take a look at the offense now. So now is offense, the Eagles' offense, the key to winning for Philadelphia in this tight division. They blow up the whole coaching staff here because again the things that
changed
happened
all
last
over, yeah.
what killed that. What killed that? Let's be honest with
God.
everybody. It wasn't even just how Carson Wentz was handled. All of a sudden, Doug Peterson. That last game where the Giants were right there and played their way into the game, and they were going to have it because it looked like the Eagles were going to pull off that win. They laid down. They pulled out Jalen Hurts here. Again, he used a pull-out thing, pull-out alert. They pulled him out and purposely gave up that game. They were going to win that game. And then they lost on purpose so the Giants could not get in. And that showed you right there. So many people were disgruntled with that.
Oh, yeah.
Even Eagles fans are like, dude,
Oh.
you're not even going to try to
Like,
do
we
this?
need to try to. We need to beat our division rival. That's what fans were saying. And the
come
Eagles, as an
on.
organization, and everything, they wanted to do it to spite the Giants and
Yes.
not allow them to. Which, listen, we've seen that all the way through the league. Certain things have happened. Certain things have been done just like that deliberately. So a division rival can't either make the playoffs or something like that. Like, we've seen it like, okay, if the Giants need the Eagles to win against the Dallas Cowboys, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then the Giants get in. The Eagles are going to be like, we're going to play up to a certain point, and then all of a sudden we're going to be like, take our foot off the gas pedal and kind of just let the Cowboys come back. You know what I mean? You could just see that happen, and it happens way too often. There's no way you can prevent it, obviously, because how are you going to really prove that they're purposely doing it? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it was against the Dallas Cowboys, and they had them on the ropes. They were going to win that game. And like Herm Edwards says, you played to win the game. You play to win. I mean,
play to just play.
play it.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's
And
right.
Herm Edwards will always be known for doing that, saying that, and that is absolutely true for this team.
And,
so looking
and
at
what the difficult thing for that too is, like, the players aren't going to give up.
No,
They're not going to.
no.
They want to
They
win.
wanted
the game.
to, and they were kind
But
of
it's-
scratching their head.
But it's plays that you select that worked, that didn't work against your opponent. That's what they're going to go back to, and yeah.
right, and
that's
even
all.
Hurts was like, "What are you doing?" And he was kind of like, "You benched me? Why'd you
Yeah,
bench
what
me,
the
dude?
hell?
Like,
Well,
what's going on?"
We were going to be able to come back
We're
and
going
win
to come
this
back and
thing.
win. Yeah, and now this whole thing that's been going on with them and how the team has been handled now, even in the offseason, with Nick Sirianni not exactly coming out and saying that he's going to be the true starter, that it's an open competition between him and Joe
has to
Flacco.
say that.
Yeah, I know.
He
and he
has
should
to.
say that. Yeah, but we all kind of know that. Even Joe Flacco would probably know his role in this whole thing. I mean, I'm the veteran there. I'm going to try and help teach this guy, but I'm also trying to
The
compete.
thing too is Howie Roseman, who's the owner, the GM. He's come out and said he's our guy.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there's no question he's our starter. And then
Right.
because they hired Nick Sirianni, and then when media reporters ask him, of course he's going to say it's an open competition, guys. Just wait to
I
hear
hear
the
he
word.
wants to keep that going, and that sounds great and everything. But again, you're trying to instill confidence in your quarterback
Right.
that only had a few games last year and
Right.
had like I think that was close to like 6 touchdowns and 4 turnovers. It was really close
Yeah,
again. So you want to instill confidence in the guy. And his last coach pulled him out in that last game when they were going to basically have one of his only victories there.
You're right.
I
That
mean,
was purpose. That was on purpose, though.
Tough for a young quarterback, especially because you don't want to put him in that mode. He's young, he's fresh,
No.
he's high coming out of college. I want to come into the NFL
But
and I
you-
want to prove something
Right.
and I want to win.
But he had a conversation with Jalen Hurts why
Yeah,
he
I'm
did
sure,
it.
after.
You know that. And so, I mean, Jalen Hurts, it's okay, whatever. That page is turned, and he's moved on from it. Now there's a new coach in
Yeah,
town.
Sirianni-
A lot of things could change, too. Like, this isn't going to be the same thing that Doug Peterson had. It's not going to be the same exact offense that Doug Peterson was running. It's not going to be. It's going to be similar, but it's going to be similar more to the Colts than anything with Frank Reich.
Right.
So if you've ever watched any of the Colts games and how they run their offense, be prepared for a lot of those. It might not be identical, but similar type of offense for the Eagles for Hurts. I think it's going to work out well. I mean, they have running backs that they can utilize, and that brings us to that offensive question: is their offense going to have to try to really kind of carry this defense? Because with that weak of a linebacking core, that's a huge position group to have a weakness at. Offensively, they got a lot of unproven guys on this offense, but their offensive line looks pretty darn stacked. It looks like a really legitimate, really good, possibly one of the best in this division, if not the best. Young offensive line, despite Jason Kelsey at center, guy's older than dirt, but still playing at a really high level. So a lot of these guys also returning from health issues. You know, you look at Brandon Brooks, who was formerly in Houston. He comes over. He's healthy yet again. Lane Johnson, last 2 years has been hurt and missed a ton of time. Can he stay healthy this year? He better. And then you have Andre Dillard, who is still developing as a left tackle. And I feel like he's finally getting grasp of that position, is going to look really well. And Isaac Sumalo, who to me is one of the most underrated guards in the league. A guy who's super solid, going to give you his all and lock it down for them. So offensive line-wise, I don't think there's a concern there. That's definitely a strength. And then when you put all these young pieces around a really good offensive line, a lot of things can happen for you. A lot of things can open up. So you have a good old line. You got some running backs in like Miles Sanders. We've seen what he can do. Kind of like a dual threat type of back. Guy can catch out of the backfield and definitely knows how to run the football. And then you have Jalen Hurts, who's also another kind of enigma in himself. Very mobile quarterback, dangerous with his legs, also can throw the football extremely well. And here's the biggest thing, and this is going to be the telltale of everything, is their young receivers. Can some of them, like Jalen Rieger, Travis Fulgham, can they take another step forward in their development? And we've seen what Travis can do. Last year, Travis came from Green Bay, and it didn't look like he was going to play much.
Right.
He comes in and, like gangbusters, has a breakout year with the Eagles. And whenever quarterback was there, he was the one catching the ball a lot of times. Rieger had a little bit of an injury issue, and so he had some time off and that type of thing. But when he came back in later in the season, he looked like he was going to be another really good draft pick for them at receiver. And now you look at none other than Devonta Smith, who just got drafted. The biggest thing for him is you got to put weight on. No question can this guy run one of the best routes in football, obviously. Great hands and all that, and fast. But this dude literally is like 174 pounds right now. Very light. It's like having another young version of Deshaun Jackson out there again.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
And it's all well and good, but the physicality of the NFL might take a toll on him going down the stretch, and he might struggle from time to time. So let's see if he can add some muscle before week 1 happens. I think that's a given. I think the Eagles are well aware of that, and they're working on that. But really, the receiving core is going to have to take a step forward in their development, as well as just be available. Just make plays that's given to you. And this offense could very well be the reason why they make it as far as whatever they do.
All right, we've got Stephen Bogucki in the house with us tonight. All right, he says,
welcome, Steve.
Yes, he says Jets and Giants postseason. Yeah, maybe you're half right on that one. I don't know. But we'll see. Well, that's all wishful thinking. We'll see.
Maybe it's a post preseason.
Preseason, yeah.
Post preseason.
Perhaps.
Almost.
Perhaps.
We almost are
that's
getting.
wishful thinking.
Hey, we're getting closer to preseason games,
it's
man.
exciting.
I'm excited. 2-3
finally.
weeks away.
Hey, we got our tickets. We're going to a game coming up too in this coming season. A lot of stuff going on with our show too this season too. Stay tuned for that.
Big announcements coming.
A lot of stuff moving forward. But yeah, this Eagles offense. I know what you're saying because first of all, Eagles fans and a few others looked at the Jalen Rieger thing and kind of scratching their head when there was other guys out there, and they're like, man, you could have maybe got him. Like, really? This doesn't make sense. Right. And they're looking for him to take another step. So this season coming into it, I mean, you got Travis Fulgham off of waivers here from Green Bay, and again, that was a nice little
great move.
Little side piece for them. You know, wrote 500 receiving yards last year. You know, to complement with these guys here. And Devonta Smith was there for him. Just sitting there going, and they
traded up to get him.
Trade up to get him, exactly.
And
he
the
was
Giants
there,
were
made the
pissed.
moves. Yeah.
The Giants
Jumped
were
right
pissed.
In
They were going to take him.
They go and they screw the Giants one more time. I remembered in the draft, too. We were there, and the Giants were there, and I'm like, they go and made the trade up, and then I'm hearing it, and it goes – and there they are,
and
they go.
trade up.
The Eagles go and choose
they
Devonta
select.
Smith. I'm like, they screwed us again. You know, this is these damn Eagles, and I'm like, and they have a new head coach, and they screwed us again.
Oh,
but whatever,
course.
that's just what they do, I guess. Whatever.
But another thing that I wanted to bring up too about the receivers, now that we're back on it, is Another guy who played really well, but in limited fashion, is Greg Ward Jr.
Yeah.
For
He was my under-the-radar player last year.
Also keep an eye on young player who they drafted in 2020 in Quez Watkins. He's another guy who they're developing, going to get better. And John Hightower, if you're asking where J.J. Arcega-Whiteside went, he's way down on the depth chart. And I wonder if now the Eagles are starting to change their minds about their draft pick in 2019. If he might not make the team. He might be on the roster bubble with all this young talent. So. Yeah,
That's
all in
right.
all,
We are amped up for this season. We are talking the biggest questions of the NFC East. We've covered 3 of them so far. We got one more team left over. But let's take a minute real quick to talk about Raise Energy, Joe. Raise Energy. Our promo codes, raise them up.
Woo!
Talk about Raise here, Joe.
Raise Energy, baby. If you need an energy drink that's going to get you lifted and keep you lifted, this is the one. Raise Energy. We drink it all the time. And ever since we started drinking this, it's been amazing. No crashing at all. Like, even when the energy wears off and burns off, I don't feel drowsy. I don't feel tired. I feel great. Raise Energy is the way to go. Make sure you enter our promo code. Go to repsports.com. Anything you buy on repsports.com, Raise Energy, enter promo code RaiseEmUp. You'll get an instant 15% off anything you buy there. They're also running a special right now. It's a free sampler pack. You can get on there. You pay $10 shipping. And you get, I think, 4 cans of Raise Energy plus a bunch of to-go packets, so you can try it out if you want to take that route.
Absolutely. There you go. Join the Raise Rebellion.
Join the
Mike
Raise
Tackett.
Rebellion. And also, it also has amino acids for all you gym nuts out there. You like to work out. Electrolytes are in this thing, and it's just been amazing.
Yep, hydration and energy.
I'll tell you
at the
right
same
now,
time.
the other thing that's interesting about this energy drink is they don't have plain Jane flavors.
Yeah, that's
They're
true.
all different, and you can't pinpoint them. I dare you. Go order Raise Energy drinks, enter promo code RaiseEmUp, and pick out all these different.
Absolutely.
This one's Phantom, by the way.
Yeah, Phantom. That one's one of my favorite. Phantom
pretty
Freeze.
good.
It's good.
You've got Apollo over there.
I do. And the more I drank some of the sour gummy worms, I'm like, this probably really does taste like sour gummy worms.
Yeah.
I'm going to get another assorted pack. I'm really dying to try the grape bubble gum.
I'll bring it over.
I want to try it.
I got extras. I'll bring you over.
All right,
some
excellent.
grape.
So, not an extra. Our man out there, Mike Tackett's in the house with us.
Mikey.
He says, Ian Rappaport reporting that the Jets have agreed to terms with wide receiver Elijah Moore, their second rounder, and he gets a 4-year, $8.94 million contract with guarantees through the first 3 years.
Yes, sir.
There you go. The Jets
Make
trying
that
to
money.
get some stuff then here. So, we're going to handle that division next week
Yeah,
here.
it's gonna
The
be exciting.
AFC East, there's a lot of questions going on there, too, for those guys out
Can we
there.
just say all of the above?
Yeah.
Just whatever you want to talk about. It's like the whole team.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the Jets, who knows? I mean, I don't think they could get any worse from what last year was, so I don't know. Who knows? They could possibly,
We'll save
but
it.
I
We'll
don't
save
know.
it.
Do
We'll
I want to
save it.
jinx them already? Yeah,
Save
I'm
it
sorry.
for when we talk about them.
Yeah, definitely. So here we go. Let's move on to our final team of the NFC East, and it is the Washington football team. Still the
Whimpers.
nameless team, the Washington football team. All right, so, Joe, I
Whack
guess
jobs.
let's take a look at it. I'll ask the first question then. Let's
Go
say,
for it.
Is Washington, their defense, a top 5 defense in the NFL then this season?
Whew, I'll tell you right now, if you got to watch the Washington football team, God, I hate that. I
It's
hate
too
saying it.
long. It doesn't roll off your tongue right.
No, it doesn't. But
I'm
anyway,
going to find that other name for Washington. You got to hear this. This is the dumbest name I've ever heard.
there's another name coming up? Or?
Another name that they used to
there-
be called at one point.
Oh,
you know what I'm
really?
saying? Yeah. So, I mean, I
And
found
not
it
the
here.
Redskins.
Unless it was a different organization, but I heard this, and it was Washington, and I was like, that cannot be a
Washington-
real name. I'm like,
Willy Wonka Factory.
Yeah. Here
Washington-
we go. Look at right here. It is, and it is. We
Whiskers.
have the Washington Glee Club.
Oh, my God. No way.
The Washington Glee Club back in
Wow.
1920.
No. Oh, my God. That is-
1920.
Go back
and then
to
the
old days.
Washington Senators in 1921, and that's what a lot of teams people wanted the Washington Redskins to go change to. But yeah, the Washington Glee Club.
Wow.
That's
All right,
right,
anyway,
Joe.
let's go back to the defensive talk here.
Ugh.
Is the Washington defense a top 5 defense in the NFL? I'm going to say absolutely, because last year they were in that top 10, almost like top 6 range, and you look at what they've done this offseason. Again, much like the Giants adding weapons to fill holes that they had the previous year. And now what just happened to my whole thing that I was going to talk about?
I don't know.
Anyway, they got one of the best pass rushing tandems and young guys too. Chase Young. You have on the other side, you have a guy by Montez Sweat. I mean, these guys have come into the league about the same time, and they are wreaking havoc on opposing offenses. You also look on the interior of this D-line, and you got Jonathan Allen there, who's a very hard man to move, a guy who does create pressure, alongside Deron Payne. And just those four, that front four right there, you can make the argument that it's the best D-line in this league. I mean, they are so solid, it's unreal. And with these young studs, with Chase Young and Montez Sweat, they're just, I mean, they could break some records by the time their careers are done with. They just got to stay healthy. But beyond that, and then you look at their depth, Matt Ioannidis is a backup now because of all this. Definitely worthy of a starting position. And Tim Settle, who came over now, and he's a very good player, but a little bit underrated, but he's still there. Linebacking core. Now you look at the linebacking core, and it's pretty darn solid. The only question I would have is outside linebacker Cole Holcomb. Not really sure if he's the answer there. I don't know too much about him, but maybe he'll surprise some people this year. John Bostic comes back for yet another season, a consummate veteran there to lock down the middle linebacker role. And one of my favorite draft picks in this draft is Jamin Davis, who I think is just going to be absolutely amazing for Washington. Here's a linebacker that can cover some receivers at times. The guy is super fast, very gifted, great tackler, instincts galore. Watch out for Jamin Davis. And then you go to the secondary. You got William Jackson III from Cincinnati to come over to lock it down on one side. And on the opposite side, you got Kendall Fuller, who they bring over from the Chiefs. I mean, two weak positions that they once had now are strengths. And then you go and they have Landon Collins, who's coming back off an injury, to hold it down at safety for them as well. So just going through what they have in their starting lineup, I mean, it's hard not to be excited about, this Washington defense, how good it could be. But can it be top 5? I think absolutely. Obviously, it's bearing health just like any other team. But, man, on paper, this is going to be something that any offense is going to be scared to go up against.
Absolutely, and we saw what this team could do just with this defense alone. Basically,
they carried the team.
They carried the team, absolutely. Where you had Alex Smith on, his farewell tour, basically going through and manning the ship, doing the best he could, and he even wasn't even spectacular. I mean, this defense was it all. They got it to take this division,
right, and
then also press hard in that game. I mean, you saw the defense tried the best that they could to compete with Tom Brady and the Bucs. Just couldn't get it done, especially because the lack of weapons even on offense that they didn't have. And you couldn't even question the quarterback play in that position. Tyler Heineke looked really good, too, for this team on offense, too. So they even bring him back and give him another deal. So that's another thing about their offense. But this defense really showed what they could go and do and potential and put Washington on the map, known for Washington for defenses throughout their franchise, altogether. I mean, we've seen a bunch of those guys, from the old school smash mouth defenses. This reminds me a lot of those guys. And like you said, they only got better. They
only got better. They have no weakness right now. Despite maybe a couple, like I said, Cole Holcomb, who I don't really know too much about, and then maybe their free safety.
Yeah, I think Landon Collins even, too, just because, again, I don't think he's great in coverage, and he is a little older going forward. I mean, and if that's your weakness, that's not really nothing to scoff at. So
no, I mean, Landon Collins, he's not a terrible player. He's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
But he's not like – he's not Ed Reed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
exactly. So I mean, that's when we're trying to look at all the great players.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like you're the Winkus, like oh, okay, really, okay. So what, So, but right. So I mean, absolutely agree with you as well. I mean, one of those top tier ones, definitely, and maybe now, if you take a look at the offensive line now. one of the questions that we pose here is, do they have the most underrated offense? When you take a look at them, potentially they could be. I mean, we already knew about Terry McLaurin, but we needed some other help. We got to see Cam Sims a little bit. He played a little bit. Antonio Gandy-Goldman, too, had some highlights here. They got Kevin Harmon there. Curtis Samuel joins the team now, too. So now you got those two on opposite sides. So that's really special for them. And that's what we've been looking for. Now, who's steering the ship? They weren't sure. They grabbed Taylor Heineke, got him another deal.
3-year deal.
Kyle Allen comes into the picture here, another Carolina guy
another
that
year
Ron
he's
Rivera
there.
knows. Yep. And now Ryan Fitzpatrick, they go and grab him from the Miami Dolphins. He is no longer with the Dolphins again. Fitzmagic, he's going to try and bring some more magic to this team and potentially get this team to the playoffs again, which he has never done throughout his career. Took it a team to the playoffs. So
he's never really been the true starter too either.
The only time I can really recall is back in his Buffalo days and Jane Gailey and back in his early starts.
But they didn't have anything around him at that point.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah, and then they moved on to J.P. Lossman and some other guys. I mean, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, let's forget about that.
Ryan Fitzpatrick now, in here, known to have spurts of greatness.
Definitely,
we saw it back in Tampa with those 4 games continuous of 400 yards passing, which that's a record now too.
And he had a couple 500-yard passing games too.
Absolutely. And then Antonio Gibson was a nice little piece for them too in the backfield that I really like. But the question here now, I think, is losing some pieces here on offensive line. They bring back Eric Flowers, who was really good for them when he was there. He left and went to another team. Now he's back from Miami as well. Right. And Charles Leno is there too as well. So how is this offensive line going to hold up for them? And, Brandon Scherf, he signs his he's still on his last year.
He signed his tender.
Yep. So this is probably his last year with these guys too. How is this offensive line going to hold up for these guys? But then also another highlight for him, Logan Thomas really came out on the scene as a legit tight end.
Yeah, Logan Thomas finally got his break of his career. He finally came to a team where he could maybe push for a starting spot, and he did. He did exactly that. Broke out last year. Was definitely one of the go-to options for whoever was playing quarterback, because we know they had like a bunch of different guys playing quarterback, and he exploded on the map. It was amazing. So he's looking to continue that success this year, and maybe even improve on that. And you look at the offensive line, like you bring up, like how good are they going to be? Well, I think they're going to be pretty darn solid, because they really did like Eric Flowers 2 years ago with them, and they wanted to keep him, but I don't know if it was maybe a discrepancy on like how much money they were going to pay him or whatnot. So he ends up going to Miami, comes back this year. That is a weakness of them as left guard. They managed to bring in Flowers, which
better where he plays better.
He was seen out of college. Listen, this is where the thing where some guys get misdiagnosed in terms of their draft capital and where they should be playing. Is a lot of people that were studying Eric Flowers coming out of college, they were saying, well, he might have to shift to guard to be a quality starter, and he just wasn't given that opportunity in New York. He was given that opportunity with Washington and exceeded like a lot of people thought. So they bring him in. He's going to be solid for them at left guard. You have left tackle. They bring over a guy who I never thought would get cut from Chicago, and Charles Leno Jr., a guy who has won Pro Bowl awards and that type of thing. And yes, he's up there in age, but that was a huge weakness as left tackle. They had nobody until they got Leno Jr. there. Now they have a solid left tackle, so that fills another hole. Chase Rollier, their center, he was there last year but got injured. He's coming back healthy. Brandon Scherf, again, the same boat. Another guy who missed most of the season, if not all. Brandon Scherf, an all-pro guard. Now he's going to be able to come back and play for them. And Cornelius Lucas, another starting caliber right tackle for them. I think after all these additions and all these guys coming back from health, that's going to cement this offensive line and really be able to give time for Ryan Fitzpatrick or whoever wins the job, because we don't really know for sure officially who's going to win this job. Maybe Tyler Heineke surprises people in training camp. But all in all, this offensive line does look pretty solid enough to be able to help out this offense and give time whoever's throwing the ball. And then you have the receivers. Everybody knows who Terry McLaurin is, hands down. One of the best receivers in the league. Guy doesn't get talked about enough. But now they bring over a guy who maybe not a lot of people are familiar with, is Curtis Samuel from the Carolina Panthers. This is a guy who has been with the Panthers for several years, hasn't really gotten too much of an opportunity until 2 years ago, and started to make a name for himself. And slowly but surely is now a legitimate starting receiver. Now they pair him up with Terry, who I think is going to split the defensive field. Now they can't just worry about Terry McLaurin. Now they also got to pay attention to Curtis Samuel. And by doing so, they're also going to have their guy returning back from last year in Calvin Harmon, who was injured. Kind of a little unknown type of guy, but a very solid receiver. And they have other young guys behind them that maybe are going to play some parts here and there, maybe in the red zone, like an Antonio Gandy-Golden, who is a taller receiver. Maybe he's going to be a red zone threat for them. They got a draft pick in the 3rd round from 2020, this past draft, and Daomi Brown. He looks to maybe develop to be one of those playmakers for them, maybe down the stretch. But here's another guy that kind of gets forgotten about altogether. Used to be with Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
Now he's in Washington, is Adam Humphries.
Yeah.
Adam Humphries used to play really well in the slot for Tennessee, and he kind of just disappeared out of
Yeah.
nowhere.
Yeah, I know. I forgot that they even picked him up. I was like, holy crap.
They
I didn't know
actually
that.
have him on this kind of like rotation that I feel is going to play off really well. And then you look at Antonio Gibson, who is their starting running back.
Yep.
And there's no question. This guy has earned that right to be their starter. Listen, he's definitely deserving of it. We've seen what he can do on the ground and in the air, catching the football out of the backfield. Very shifty type of a running back and can handle it. You look at this guy's stats and you're like, wow, I don't know if he's going to be able to hold up all year. But he's tougher than he looks, and he can also break tackles too. So with Ryan Fitzpatrick maybe possibly at the helm, that's what we're assuming is going to be the starter. And I think for the first time, if he does win this job, he might be able to prove a lot of doubters wrong, because he hasn't really been a true starter, like you mentioned, until since Buffalo. But then Buffalo didn't really have anything to offer him to help him. So now he's going to come to a team where, they might not be a ton of big names across the board, but they got really good ball players. So let's see what he can do with a team like this, with a guy like Terry McLaurin, a guy who's a definite number 1 receiver. And now Curtis Samuel, definitely a number 2 receiver. And Logan Thomas at tight end. This is a nice kind of nice group of weapons for him to dish the football wherever he sees fit. And maybe this offense is going to surprise some people as well.
Absolutely. And if you take a look at the running backs again, too, even the guys behind Antonio Gibson, any one of these guys in certain spots for this team are decent, too. I mean, you got J.D. McKissick, who is the most overrated Madden player, I think, ever, because they always rated him ridiculous.
That guy
and
breaks
he's never
tackles in
plays, you know what I mean? This guy
crazy.
never plays, but he gets, serious ratings. Peyton Barber, we've seen him with Tampa Bay, and Lamar Miller's still even out there. So these guys have a chance to make the team here and play for these guys, too, and potentially be little spot backs
and Peyton
in the
Barber
backfield.
comes over from Tampa.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe he can carve out some time.
Absolutely. And they're familiar with each other, too. So, I mean, there
What's
you go.
not to like and watch?
Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. That's the NFC East biggest questions for tonight. That's what we've done.
Yes.
So next week we will get back into it, and we will give you the
doing?
AFC East's biggest
AFC.
questions. That's going to be pretty interesting too.
That'll be fun to talk about. I will say that
Absolutely.
because there's going to be a hell of a lot more questions.
Patriots
that we can
fans,
have.
Jet fans, come in and join us. Buffalo Bills. We know you're out there too. Bills Mafia. We're all in upstate New York here. That's where we go live and everything. So
guys,
bring it on.
Hey guys, don't be scared to comment below. Don't be scared about it. We're one of the most interactive shows you'll ever see. Listen, Mike Tackett can vouch for us. He's a guy down in Florida. He doesn't know us from anything. One time he checked our show out and was like, I like these guys. These guys know what they're doing. And then since then he's been a know-it-all for life. So Mike Tackett,
We're
really
like
do
family
appreciate your
already.
support. And just so you know,
And if you comment, definitely.
If you comment down below, if you ask a question, if you have an opinion about what we're talking about, or it doesn't have to be about what we're talking about. We'll talk about your team. We'll talk about a situation, whatever you want to. Just comment down below. We'll react to it. We'll respond. We're all here to help each other out, man.
Anytime you can break up the monotony of Joe talking nonstop.
There's
it's good.
There's definitely times when we might be stuck on something. You
Oh,
guys
yeah,
out
yeah.
there can help us out.
I do that all the time.
So, but really appreciate the support, the guys the people that have been here. If you know anybody that loves football like we do, we're very passionate about it. This is why we do the show. We have a lot of fun with you guys. Go ahead and follow us on YouTube or Facebook. Football on the Know Show. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. All the notification bell to get all the latest and greatest updated content. And like I said, on Facebook, we're Football on the Know with Jim and Joe. That's our page. Make sure you join it. Become a know-it-all. Hit that membership button. And you can also, yes, we are also on Twitter as well. You can follow us on the last second, any kind of news that we post or whatever. Sometimes we post stuff that the big-time media won't post with charities that these players do and different stories and such. At FB_know, we're on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. And we have big news again coming up in the next couple of weeks here. August is going to be a big month for us. So we welcome you guys along with us. We thank you again so much. Raise them up. That's the promo code. Go to repsports.com. Raise them up. Get yourself some Raise energy drinks.
Yes.
You won't regret it.
No.
Thank you to Buck Environmental Solutions as well. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday nights for more Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.